so much for coming out today. We're really delighted to talk to you about some of the experiences we've had this season of costuming in Rep. And we're really lucky to have our director of costume, Jeffrey Todhunter, here to discuss it with us.
Thanks for coming.
So Jeffrey, to get started, I just wanted you to talk to us a little bit about the process, sort of start to finish, of constructing a costume.
I will.
What it looks like.
First I'll explain what the costume shop is like as far as staff, so that as I talk about how that goes beyond that, you'll kind of have a sense of what I'm talking about. So our costume shop is made up of a staff. It's roughly around a dozen people, and that includes people that make apparel, it includes people that make non-apparel like accessories, and also handles wig and hair and makeup. So our costume shop is staffed with 2 drapers. Drapers are responsible, there's a draper assigned to each actor for all of their costumes for any given production. The draper's responsibility primarily when making a new costume is to develop the patterns, create the patterns for the actual patterns for the costumes that are going to be cut and sewn. The draper has an assistant, which is called the first hand. That person works directly with the draper, takes those patterns, cuts them out, hands those over to the stitchers who sew the costumes. Okay? Then the first hand is responsible for understanding how those pieces need to go together, having an understanding of what the goal is at the end of that project so that they can instruct the stitchers through that process. And then we have a group of 2 crafts artisans in our shop, and they are in charge of footwear, jewelry, hats, accessories, anything that's not regular clothing, apparel. It's any kind of accessories and those kind of things. So those 2 crafts artisans handle all those items. And then we have a wig department, and that usually is 3 people. There's this supervisor who's in charge of interpreting the costume designs or research, and supervising a group of several other artisans who create the wigs. So to start with, when we our process starts when we receive costume designs from the costume designer. The costume designer has spent some time over several months working with the director and the other designers to understand the director's concept for the particular play. What's the setting? What's the look? The time period? Where do these people come from? Who are they? What do they look like? So the costume designer will bring me, after she's done lots of research, he or she will provide me with research materials that they've compiled. Of some things might be inspirational, some things might be very literal to what we're going to do. Then they'll typically provide me with a sketch inspired by the research materials, the source materials. And some of you probably, when you came in, saw some of the boards in the back. Those include research materials and costume sketches and production photographs for some of the shows. So if you didn't look at those, you can look at them later. But gives you some sense of the kinds of things that I have to work with. Like for instance, I'll show you like kind of a massive amount of, for one of the shows that's playing right now, Into the Breaches, this is part of one character's research from the designer. Lots and lots of images that inspired what eventually became a sketch. So I will receive things like that from the costume designer. Anyway, then we receive that along with the sketches. The draper we evaluate if it's going to be a bought costume, if it's going to be a built costume, where all these parts need to come from. If there's multiple parts, do we have it in our stock? We check our stock of costumes, which we have lots of clothes from over the years of building costumes and collecting vintage clothing. We'll go to that stock. If it's something that we might can buy that's vintage, we'll shop it. If it's something that we know we're building, we will then take that, the draper will then take that and create the pattern for it by draping on a dress form usually. We have dress forms in all different sizes, male and female, and we'll take the actor's measurement. If we need to pad the form to adjust it, make the breasts bigger, the hips bigger, waist bigger, whatever, we make those adjustments to the form. And then the draper takes fabric and lays it on the form and creates a shape of the garments by doing this draping on the form. You can also do patterns flat on the table too, but most of our people actually like to work in 3 dimensions, and you can get a more satisfactory result that way. Once that's done, the costume, the drape piece, it translates to a paper pattern. Paper pattern is then handed to the first hand. The first hand cuts, in most cases, cuts that pattern into an inexpensive piece of fabric, not the actual costume fabric, but usually muslin or something similar to what the final fabric's going to be. We'll sew that together, and then we'll have a fitting on the actors. So in a case of production where most of our actors are coming from out of town, they're not here until they get here to start rehearsals, we will be several weeks before they get here, we'll start doing all of that for all of the different things that we need, so that by the time they arrive within the first few days, if it's a big company of like 20 to 30 people, it usually takes, if we're lucky, we can get through all of them in a week to put everything. So in the meantime, we're making those mock-ups, we're collecting clothes maybe that exist, and we're getting all that stuff is organized by actor, by show, and so we have a whole wardrobe of stuff for them to try when they arrive. And when we generally start about 6 weeks out, most of the time we're able to start 4 to 6 weeks before they arrive. Once they're here, rehearsal periods are pretty short, so we don't have a lot of time once they get here. Once they do that first fitting, there's a very short period of time for this. It has to be finished.
Wonderful. Will you talk to us more specifically about where the pieces from this season came from? So were there shows that were more heavily built versus shows where you did a lot of sourcing and pulling?
Yes. Because of the amount of clothes this season, well, luckily, a lot of the shows this season, the concepts that the directors brought to them, in some cases, in many cases, were clothes that could be found, which was good because we had a lot of shows this season. And in many cases, we had 2 in the shop at the same time. Now those 2 might be almost exactly coinciding, their openings would coincide almost at the same week or a week apart. In some cases, so we might be working on 2 at the same time. But with that, those 2 that were really together, with that, somewhere in there before that even started, we started on 2 more, okay? So sometimes there were 4 shows in the costume shop being built or put together at the same time. For instance, the first 2 shows, the very, very first show this season, I'll show you, that was my favorite, was a play called Every Brilliant Thing with 1 actor and 1 costume. Okay? So that was it. My season started with the very easiest costume project I've ever had in my life. And this actor came into the theater for rehearsal. He's just a guy. And he came in for rehearsal. The director wanted him to be comfortable and look like he looks. You know, had no particular look about him other than he just needed to be the guy that he is, basically. One-man show. And so he came in wearing something of his own, not unlike this. And I talked to the director and talked to the actor, and I bought a bunch of clothes kind of like this. Basically had a closet, 3 different kind of jeans and several shirts, and he said, we want black Converse high tops, and so we got that. He came in, we tried on different shirts, we tried on jeans. He said, okay, that's it. That took about 30 minutes. So that was amazing. So that was the first show of the season. The second show of our season was, the second show we started on was The Sound of Music, which is our holiday show, which opened in November. And it was a very large show. But in the meantime, we also had our acting fellowship company come in to the building in November, and they went immediately into rehearsal for Shakespeare's As You Like It and a musical version of Winnie the Pooh. They were in rehearsal simultaneously. Half the day they rehearsed Winnie the Pooh, half the day they rehearsed As You Like It. So while we were building The Sound of Music, we were also putting together Winnie the Pooh and As You Like It. And those are the examples that are on the board in the back. As You Like It was designed by one of our technical design fellows, Anna Jekyll, and she worked on the project weeks and weeks before she arrived here. Because her first day was the same day the actor's first day was. And so we didn't even have that costume designer in the shop prior to the actors getting here. So that was really unusual. Because normally we have some time with the designers before the actors get here. And they came in simultaneously. So that was a little bit different. And then I designed Winnie the Pooh, which we did a really simple sort of approach to that because we were then building 3 shows at the same time in the shop. We had to just make it feasible to do it. So so at that point, those were 2 shows that were in the shop at the same time. Winnie the Pooh, As You Like It. They opened simultaneously here in the rehearsal hall. They immediately went on tour. So everything had to be ready to go all at the same time, both shows. So they were rehearsing like half the day they do one, half the day they do the other. That went through a while until we let them go in early December, and then they were out. At that point, Sound of Music was open. So Sound of Music, which was, and the question was where the stuff came from. That was the whole point. So, so for As You Like It, it is sort of a rustic, sort of hippie group of folks. Most of those clothes were bought. The designer actually came to us from a summer theater she worked at, and we rented a bunch of clothes there. She was able to pull a lot of the clothes from there and bring them with her, and the company actually loaned them to us, which was great. We made a few things for that. For the most part, that stuff was pulled from our stock, borrowed from this other theater, purchased on Etsy and eBay, and that's primarily where those clothes came from. We built 2 or 3 pieces for that show, but for the most part, that was a pulled and bought show. Winnie the Pooh is based in overalls. All the characters have overalls that are dyed different colors and trimmed and stuff, and so those were purchased overalls. They were dyed in our shop. Our crafts department dyed them to match the color swatches that I gave them. And all of the shirts. The only thing we built for that show really were little headpieces with little animal ears and things like that. So we had to keep that simple because there was so much going on. The Sound of Music, I mean, another question specifically about that. The Sound of Music, we got clothes from all over the place. We rented costumes from several places. We built tons of clothes for it. The children's clothes for The Sound of Music, we built the majority of those. The children in Sound of Music were double cast. The young children were double cast. There were 13 kids playing 6 kids, and then the oldest girl was played by an adult. Altogether, the children company alone had 91 outfits. 91 outfits. And then the rest of the show that came to, the whole show had about 175 costumes. Aside from a couple of sets of things, everything created here we acquired and processed ourselves.
How many people are in Sound of Music?
It was
30.
30-something.
Yeah.
30-something, close to 40-ish. That was just a lot. But for instance, for that show, we got, for the captain's party, we had all of the ladies' gowns made. There's a lot of places online where you can have gowns made, and I picked appropriate choices and colors. You can pick a dress, pick a color, pick a size, get a dress in 6 weeks in the mail. So I did all of those dresses that way. I had enough time to actually send them specific measurements, so they were all made exactly the measure rather than to size, which was great. With minor alterations to get those on the wall, which was wonderful. Maria's wedding dress came from one of those places too. And then we rented the Nazi uniforms for those guys, and we rented the nun costumes. Like I said, all of the children's things were made except the folk costumes. We actually were able to purchase like the little German girdles and stuff like that. Those came from the United States source. Some of those things, a lot of the clothes we purchased for the show came from Europe through Etsy and eBay. We bought a lot of German, Austrian clothing from various places in Latvia and France and wherever I found some incredible things.
Who does the purchasing? In your description of who does what?
Well, I have an assistant, and he will work on sourcing and looking for stuff so if there's specific things we want, say we need exactly this, and he'll find it and buy it. And in the case of with me or any of the design, I designed the Sound of Music, for instance. So I would search for stuff. I'd say we need blah blah blah, and he'd start looking. I'll start looking and what about this? What about this? Yeah, that's it. Get it now. Whatever. So we're sitting at our desk in our office, and it's a little back and forth. Like, well, you like this one? Yeah, I know. I get that one. And so we both sort of, and actually my costume fellow Anna, who designed As You Like It, a lot of the time she's really incredible at sourcing and shopping, and so she was invaluable the whole season with that process also. Because my assistant is also responsible for bookkeeping and communications with designers, and so he's really busy, but he does a lot of the shopping. He ultimately does the shopping, they're going on there and buying the stuff. But we had usually, and anytime we're buying stuff, looking for stuff, the designer is just doing that, I'm doing that, my assistant's doing that, and my costume fellow is doing that too. So it takes a village to make it happen, but we literally get stuff, locally, we get stuff online from all over the world. Our costume materials come from our own stock. We have a tremendous stock of fabrics that we maintain here, stuff that's left over, stuff that I have found a good deal on something really great, and I buy it. So when I need material, we go to our stock first because we have a better fabric store in the back of the building than there are in town anywhere for many miles. So in fact, Sound of Music, I bought very little fabric for it. I actually went to my fabric storage and got the majority of the fabric for the new clothes we made for it. It was kind of amazing. I didn't have to even do that much shopping for cloth, but I did buy a lot of clothes. Sound of Music also had over 150 pairs of shoes as well.
Wow. That'd be the one.
So do you have a costume wrangler with a show like that whose only job is to make sure everything's organized? And
Yes, we have an entire wardrobe department that once the costumes are finished, they're handed over to the wardrobe department. We have a wardrobe supervisor, and she has an assistant, and then there's a crew of additional dressers. So those people work the production, so they're, like right now, they're downstairs prepping everything, making sure everything's pressed, everything's been cleaned overnight since yesterday's shows. They make everything ready to go, and they're there to assist the actors to get ready. And then during the run of the show, if there's costume changes or anything like that happens during the show, they facilitate all of that. So show may have up to, if we do a huge, big musical, we may have 8 or more wardrobe people.
You mentioned being cleaned overnight. What does that process involve?
Well, we do, we don't have dry cleaning in-house, so anything that can be cleaned is stuff that we can do overnight would be spot cleaning or washing shirts and undergarments and that kind of thing. That's what we do in-house. Dry cleaning happens over the weekend. So after we're done with the show on Sunday afternoon, that stuff is processed, bagged up. The cleaners picks it up Monday morning, and if need be, returns it Tuesday morning if there's a show. Because sometimes we have a school show at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. So our cleaners will turn it around in 24 hours for us when necessary.
How do you develop a budget for each of these shows? Do you have an annual budget and then you parse it out for each production?
Each year the production department has a budget. Each budget for each costume budget for each show is determined when all the budgets for everything and that happens here is determined, and they use information based on previous similar projects, which I have a lot of times I tell them there is no similar project. They're all different. They're really simple. They'll say to me sometimes, well, isn't this kind of like this? It's like you can't think that way. There's never kind of like that other way. But within a budget for a show, I have a materials budget, which is the bulk of what you see, and then there's amount for maintenance and shipping and supplies and all within this. So the materials budget is the budget that we give the designer. When we hire a designer and they sign a contract to design whatever, their materials budget is this much money, and then we have smaller budgets, like there are other budgets, supplies and other things that support that. So, but it varies. It really varies. This year we had very healthy budgets. For the most part, they were kind of right where they needed to be.
Are you relieved when they do a modern dress like they did Romeo and Juliet and jeans? And
I mean,
does that help your budget?
No, it doesn't. And that's the thing is, a modern dress show, what it does, it helps them with time, because I'm not making a lot of clothes. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's cheaper than an elaborate built costume, because some of the outfits in Romeo and Juliet, I mean, you can see two costumes in that show, and I could show you two that look essentially the same. A flannel shirt, a t-shirt, some jeans and boots. A flannel shirt, a t-shirt, jeans and boots. And this might be a $500 outfit, and this might be a $75 outfit. It just is a matter of what things were chosen by the designer. I recently was re-looking at costs because some of the Romeo and Juliet in our town are about to close. And so some of the modern clothes that we don't really need in our stock, we will offer the actors the opportunity to purchase them if they want them at half what we paid for them. And I have one actor in the show who has some of these old worn out looking jeans, and his cost at 50% of the price, that was $75, so it was $150 per jean. And other people wearing jeans that look pretty much the same that were $30. So it doesn't work. It's not as simple as that. I wish it was. But a lot of people think, oh, modern dress is a lot. It's easier that we don't have to build all of it. But cost, it's all over the place. It really is. It's really interesting because it's very different than you might think.
Back there.
Yeah.
How much of a budget do what's the percentage of a budget that you're allowed for your one big Christmas show where people are going to do The Sound of Music, or what's the other one with lots of kids?
We did Annie last summer. Our budgets for those kinds of shows, slowly they're getting better. A big musical here has lately been around, nobody's ever told me I can't say this, $25,000 to $30,000.
So like the King
Which
and
is
I.
usually not enough.
If you were going to do the King and I.
If I was going to do the King and I, and every now and then they'll throw a title at me and go, well, how much do you think this? And I'll throw back some heinously big figure
Outrageous.
because it's realistic. But no, if you were going to say you wanted to do the King and I to me, I would say to you, not any less than $50,000.
That'd be amazing if you could do that.
That's what I would say to that one. There's several shows, they have thrown out titles to me and I have thrown back $50,000. And then they get really scared. Because that's double what our biggest budgets have been.
What's the most expensive show you've ever costed? Here.
I think Mary Poppins and Disney's Little Mermaid probably, and those are up around $25,000-$30,000. Which was a bargain for what we put out there, actually. For what we put out there, that was a bargain. Yes?
Do you have to have multiple costumes for each person in terms of costume malfunction, backup?
We don't have that typically. The only time I have multiples of some items, depending on what the production run schedule is, we might have duplicates. I mean, we'll have duplicates of socks and tights and maybe undergarments usually, but we don't have usually extra costumes. Like the Winnie the Pooh, which went on tour, it had they had duplicate. I think they had 3 pair of socks and they had 2 shirts. And now if we've been building all those clothes, they might have been able to have all that. We may not have had time to have multiples of those because those were bought and were inexpensive. We did, but typically major costume pieces, no, we don't have. And we're not at the point where we have a backup wardrobe for understudies. We have kind of a plan in our head if any understudies had to go on, like what we might do and hope that we don't. Because there's sometimes they fall into something maybe they already, like if somebody's an understudy but they're in the show in another role, many times they have something that we can make work if they have to cover like for a day. Sometimes that's not the case, and we just hope that doesn't happen, you know. It does. We figured that out. I mean, we usually have a good sense of that when we start building the costumes. So in many cases, when we're starting to do fittings, we have a pretty good sense of this is a really quick change. How can we make that happen? Can we underdress this thing? You know, do we need to quick rig this in what manner? Because and the way someone's getting in or out quick, you know, what they're going into. It's a whole thing about, is the zipper easier, it snaps better, or is Velcro good here? Velcro's easier out, but zipper's easier in, and all of that kind of stuff. And we try to figure that out based on the designer's input from them, really knowing the show, because they've been working with the script for quite some time. And then our wardrobe department, if something kind of gets down to like closer to opening or we're like in tech and we run into some issues, then we make the adjustments then. But usually we're pretty on top of that, and usually that stuff goes to the dressing rooms ready for any of those kind of issues. But there is definitely really thinking through and figuring out what's better for getting out, what's better for getting in. This want to come off of my feet, the other thing goes over my head, and all of that. We figure all that out.
I think you have about 30 minutes on the show. There's supposed to be a musical overture.
You said underclothes. The modern dress, do they wear underclothes from the time period? Is it some period?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, at some periods we will use corsets. They'll have pantaloons or bloomers in some cases. Certainly, like in our town, it's like late 1800s, early 1900s. So they're petticoats. They're not in like legitimate corsets, but they are in a sort of medium duty corset, to give them a little bit of that feel. Yeah. So we do that kind of thing as well.
What's the one show you really want a costume that you've never had the opportunity
Oh,
to do?
wow.
What's your dream show costume?
Wow.
No budget.
Yeah, no budget. What's your dream show
I did
costume?
once have an opportunity. It wasn't like a dream that I always wanted to do, but I did one time in my career get a big show without a budget, meaning whatever, unlimited. That happened to me once. That was a long time ago.
Not here.
And it wasn't here. And I don't, those people probably didn't know what they were doing. But I don't know. One show I would love to design. Actually, it's not a theater. I'd love to design a production of the Nutcracker Ballet.
Cool.
And I would like to have an unlimited amount of money. That's one. That's a piece of art because I have designed dance from time to time, and I really love it. And I know it's a lot hokey to want to design the Nutcracker of all things, but I would love that.
That would be a beautiful.
Millions of dollars. And years to do it. But no, that's one I just think. I mean, I enjoy it, and I just think it's fun. I just think it would be fun to put my own spin on it. But yeah, I don't know.
Do you have a point of view when a director comes to you and says, we're going to do this classic Romeo and Juliet in street clothes versus classic costumes? Do you have a point of view about that?
I do.
Is
I do. Well, like for instance, this year with this, we have done, I've been here about 10 years. And the 10 years I've been here, we have done 3 Romeo and Juliets. 2 were in contemporary clothes. One was more or less in Shakespearean clothes. It was our intern company tour. So it was a scaled down version. It wasn't a main stage version. And I would love to have seen this season's been more classic, because I felt like the last main stage version we did was contemporary. It was under a different regime and different artistic vision. But because, I mean, personally, since I've been here, as long as I've been here, because the last big production of R&J we did was contemporary, I would have liked to see the current big production not be contemporary. And that's someone who hasn't been here during all of those would maybe thought differently. But that was my feeling. It was like, oh, well, this is bad, because we didn't do that in a long time.
Did you do King Lear?
We did do King Lear about 5 seasons ago.
Yes.
And it was classic. It was classic. So it was spectacular. It was the
One of the best I've seen.
all around. I mean, every part of that was pretty spectacular. Yeah.
Tell them how much the boots cost.
What's that?
Tell them how much the boots cost. King Lear's
Oh,
boots.
King Lear's boots. Oh, no, that was in the tent. Oh, King Lear's boots were kind of expensive, and they were custom made. They're about $700. But for the Tempest, I have an actor who was here a few years ago. He's worked here several times. He's really tall, I think 6'7". He's a massive man, and he wears a size 17 shoe. And I had to have his shoes custom made. They were $1,000, which actually was kind of a bargain too, for what they were in this big.
Did he buy those from you?
No, he didn't. And he was recently in another show somewhere, another theater that called me, and I sent them to him, and then they didn't like them. I was like, what is he wearing then? You know?
Do actors ever have an input on the costumes? It seems like a time crunch is such that it would be a little
Not probably like what you're thinking, but they do. I mean, if you're doing a period piece, actors are less likely to have a lot of thoughts about the clothes because they're less familiar with them. If you're doing a contemporary or modern era play, actors are more familiar with those kinds of clothes, and so they might often have a little more opinion about what they think their character might wear. But I don't get a lot of that. I really don't get a lot of that. And a lot of times some actors kind of give you little signals, you know, and you just kind of pick up on it. Because I've rarely had anything said to me, you know, that this really isn't working for me. But you pick up little signals, and I don't want an actor to, if I have any control over it. I mean, I don't tell a designer what to do, but if I see an actor uncomfortable and fitting, and I feel like we can find a way for them not to be uncomfortable, then I'll try to guide that, because I don't want an actor to be uncomfortable if it's going to hinder them from doing their job. I also, don't want to create a situation where they can dictate, because that's not their job. But we want them to be able to do their job. And so I want them to be comfortable. And if I run into something, if I'm the designer and I run into something that I really, really like and it's really hindering somebody, I'm not too proud to change that. I'd really rather the actor feel like they can do what they need to do. That's my personal feeling about it.
So you would you would perhaps line a woolen garment if you needed it to look like wool from out front, but so they don't break out in
Oh, we
grass.
would always do that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't even think twice about that. Now, if you get a costume and you're too hot, sometimes I can't make that not be too hot. Some things are, because it's a heavy wool coat and it might be hot. But we try to keep the temperature on the stage so the actors will be comfortable. Because some kinds of things you have to wear. I've had people in like a big furry suit, and it's like, this is really hot. It's gonna be hot. You're in a bear suit. To make it cooler, I'm sorry, you're in the bear suit, but you got picked to be the bear.
Can you talk a little bit about storage?
Yes. Our storage, we have stuff right now in a lot of different places. We have some storage on site. Out back of the building, there's some space behind the complex where we have stuff that they're actually trailers that we have. They were originally used for classrooms and things in the past, and now we've got 3 of them out back behind the costume shop. One is completely full of fabric, like floor to ceiling, end to end, side to side, completely full of fabric.
Temperature control?
It is. They all have air conditioning, and not so much heat, but things are colder, okay. But in case we have moisture or anything, air going, so we don't have mold, stuff like that. I've got one of the spaces out there is all women's costumes. One is all men's costumes. Most of those things are from recent years. Our primary storage is in a really, really old warehouse across town. It's not in very good shape as far as like mold and moisture. So we don't put anything there anymore. Everything we have to keep in the local storage spaces. And then we have another space adjacent to the park with stuff in it as well. But we're actually kind of about out of storage, like of the good, safe storage, right? We kind of.
Is that where you keep all the accessories too, purses, hats?
Mm-hmm. A lot of things like that are in the costume, actually stored in the costume shop. And then I have a trailer out back that is half of it is all also hats, accessories, and jewelry and armor. And the costume shop is. I have an attic space in the costume shop that's full of accessories and footwear. All the footwear is in the building.
Wow. So do you have somebody dedicated to record all this and know where it is?
Well, the wardrobe supervisor is responsible for restocking all the clothes when the shows are over and maintaining those storage spaces. And she does. We have only in recent years, like the last couple of years, started to try to do a bit of an inventory. And for a long time, there hasn't been an opportunity to do that time-wise and staff. But she is working on that as time goes on.
Do you use volunteers or all your staff paid?
I'm sorry?
Do you use volunteers
Oh.
or are they all paid?
All of our regular staff are professionals and they're full-time during our season and they're paid. And we also do use volunteers. We have a few people that come in from time to time, and we're always interested in anybody who has some skills and time occasionally to come help us out. A lot of times that's toward the end of the build as we're finishing stuff. A lot of times. We use people with any skill set. If somebody has more skills to be in the earlier part of the process, that's great too. Most of our people are people who do finishing work, but we've had people who've come in and actually sewn stuff, like really, have more skills. So we do utilize volunteers at various buildings.
Well, we've still got a little bit of rep left to come this season. What's next for the costume department?
Well, right now the costume department is on hiatus, and we've got 3 shows kind of at the end of the summer, early fall. 2 of those shows are coming in, or a theater company is coming in and doing those shows. So those will come in intact and be done. We have one production called Buzz, which will be in September, October slot. They're just getting started on that. In fact, right as we talk, they are in a meeting down the hall. The creative team, the director's here, the designers are here. They've been meeting all day. to develop what that's going to be. So I don't know what that's going to be yet, because they're just figuring it out right this minute.
Is that one being produced in the costume shop?
It is being produced here, yes, yes. So that one will be, the last, our season, our season 47, 18, 19 is, has this little break, and then it comes back with those 3 shows at the end, and we're producing Buzz. It's a fairly new play, and so we're producing that in the late summer, early fall.
Well, thank you all so much for coming out today. We want to make sure you have a chance to get to your seat and go to the bathroom if you're going to see a show today. But let's give another round of applause